Welcome to Childcare Conversations, the podcast where early childhood leaders like you get real-world strategies, honest talk, and a whole lot of support. Whether you're running one center or many, we're here to help you lead with confidence and clarity. This episode is brought to you by this quarter's sponsor, Playground, the all-in-one childcare management software. We're all about managing monkeys and saving you time at your center. With this platform, you can. We're proud to partner with a team that's as committed to your success as we are. Learn more at tryplayground.com. Now, let's get into today's conversation, one we think you're really going to love.
Welcome back to this week's episode of Childcare Conversations with Kate and Carrie, and we are so excited to have Julie Martinez with us. And although Julie comes from Texas, we did happen to get to know Julie much better actually in Orlando, Florida at the Association for Early Learning Leaders Conference this year. And we were talking casually after one of the workshops, and I absolutely fell in love with her story about opening her most recent school. And so that's what we've asked Julie to come on and kind of share with us today. But I'm going to start by letting Julie introduce herself, tell us a little bit about her background, maybe even how she found herself in childcare, or even how she found herself as an owner. You don't have to make this a 20-minute bio. Just letting you know.
Completely understood. Yes, ma'am. Well, I'll make it short and sweet to the point. I was actually a teen mom, and I had my daughter when I was a senior in high school, and she had to go somewhere so I could finish high school. And I struggled with that a little bit, so I asked the director for a job, and she's amazing, and I love her to death to this day. She's still one of my closest friends, and she gave me a job, and it turned into a passion. I always say the industry found me. I didn't find it. And I tried to leave one time, and I was just drawn back to it. It just seemed like it was what I was meant to do. So I decided to just dig in all in, and went back to school for everything and opened my first center in Carrollton 17 years ago, on a dream and a hope and no money. And it worked out really well. And now my new venture is in Plano, and that one has been open for about 2.5 months.
Awesome. All right. So Carrie, you know a little bit about what the topic is, but I'm going to let you ask questions because I know that there's a question about this topic that's just, it's back there, or maybe right here. I don't know. We'll have to see. But Carrie had 4 centers, and I know that this particular topic is one that is near and dear to both of us. So Carrie, I'm going to let you.
Yeah, so I got my school number 4 because the landlord asked me to come and take over. And in that situation, we could not end up making it work long term, because the reason that the child care center that had been there was failing is because the large employer had left. And so for me, there's a lot of, what could I have done differently to keep that school up and running? It's now a restaurant and I think an ice cream shop. And there's something in between. There's 3 businesses in where that child care center used to be. One of which is a really good restaurant that I like to eat at, but it's really weird when they don't seat me in my old office. Sometimes they put me back in the preschool classroom, and I'm like, no, I need to be up there. That was my office.
That's my stomping ground over there, don't you know?
Yep.
I have a similar story, but it's related to a dentist, so it's okay. We're all good. We don't need to talk about my dentist. Well, really, it's my kid's dentist, but that's even more of a don't need to go there. So with that, why don't you ask Julie the actual question?
So what did you do to make sure that there would be enough people who would bring their kids to you to make whatever rent you have?
Well,
market research.
That's still a work in progress. It's obviously this time right now, a lot of centers are struggling. So it's still a work in progress, but we have some really wonderful young ladies who work with me that are social media gurus, and they have had just the best time making videos. And I have honestly laughed many times at their videos. But as of right now, that's our biggest go-to to get people into the building, was just, letting people know we're here, we're open. The previous school that was there, I don't know for sure, but it doesn't seem to have had a lasting impression with the community that this was a place to be. So we're
Mhm.
trying to also get that reputation of this is the place you can be, and place that's safe for your kids, and come meet us and come in, and that kind of thing. So I think it's going to take a little time, but we're going to get there eventually.
Well, I feel like maybe we've jumped and missed a skip, hop and a skip here. So, for those of you who are listening, Julie's most recent center actually is in a church,
Yes.
and it is not run by the church. And they asked Julie to come in. So basically, there was an owner who needed somebody to come and operate a child care center in their space. So I think Carrie wanted to get there, but she distracted herself. So I'm just gonna tie us.
Distracted? Never. I'm never distracted.
So I thought I would sew us back together. So with that, Julie, what was your initial thought? The church comes to you, they want you to do this. What immediately popped into your head?
The first thing that came in my head, to be honest, was my program is not faith-based. We use Frog Street curriculum. It's more of an educational. I don't have like a basis for the faith-based part. I'm not for it. I'm not against it. I think that's something families need to work on at home. So that was a big concern of mine. So I did meet with the church, and to my surprise, they were open and willing to, try this new venture with it not being an educationally based program.
So, how did they find you? What made them reach out to you and not to someone else?
Well, one of the employees who works for the church in their office was one of my grandparents. Her granddaughter came to my school in Carrollton for many years.
Wait.
And
So you had a raving fan from another location that was actually the grandparent who made the referral for your next location.
that is correct.
All right. I like to kind of I feel like people should have heard that, but I just want to make sure that we spell that out, because sometimes people don't always understand the importance of building those lasting relationships, those raving fans. And I just think it's awesome. So you also said used to be. So this child has now outgrown your program in Carrollton.
Yes, she is
Wow.
16 and driving now.
Oh,
But
so not even just a little. So we're not
yeah,
just talking like some 8-year-old. We're talking, okay. All right. Well, we have a grown
Okay.
up
And
kid.
I
yes,
also think, that whole it's the grandma. So whether that was a grandma who was the caretaking parent or guardian one or two, or whether that was the grandma who was emergency contact number one, it was that it was a grandma. And we, even if people do think about we want to be have a good relationship with the parents, a lot of times we're narrowed to the parent or guardian one, the one
mhm.
who shows up day after day, and not the other people on the sign out list.
Yes, and I think sometimes, just as you said, sometimes you overlook the other people that come in the door. And so I really do pride myself on trying to make sure I know every person who comes in the door, whether they're grandma, grandpa, or anything. I try to keep up with everybody's names, and I think that builds relationships that might open doors later that you just don't know are there.
Well, and you're a perfect example that, Carrie, you need to make a note. We need to do a grandma episode. We've
Yes,
got all kinds of grandma stories, but I'm not sure we
yes.
have this grandma story. So we need to add that
Well,
to our
we
list
we
of
love
grandma
our
stories.
grandparents. Yes, we love our grandparents at our school. We have grandparent gardening with Grandparents Day at the end of spring break, and they come in and they garden things. And then when we get sunflowers that grow, the school age kids measure them and send parent pictures to their grandparents that maybe don't live here, so they get to stay and be involved with it.
Oh, I just love all those stories. Okay, Carrie, you writing all this down? Because otherwise we're
I'm
going to have to
just
rely
writing
on AI to
include Julie
remember.
I wrote grandparent episode include Julie Martinez.
I will
Okay,
show up.
awesome. Well, I love that. I love that. So, Julie, was the community where your new school is located, was there some need for childcare, and that is also part of the reason that the church reached out to you, or was this the church trying to figure out how to keep their books afloat? I mean, I'm just, or maybe
I
you
think
don't
it
know the answer to that, but
No, I think it's a little bit of both. I really, really do. There's not a whole lot of centers that are by us, and definitely not ones that are involved with the Texas Rising Star program. And so I did really want to bring a quality program to that area. So that's my goal right now. But I also do think it was a financial stability for the church as well.
awesome. So by talking about being part of the TRS, because we do have listeners all over the country, TRS is Texas's
Hey, you're
Quality
forgetting the
Improvement.
people in other countries. We've got them in other.
That's okay. So it's the Texas Quality Improvement Program money. And so because you mentioned that, I am presuming that that means that you have, or the goal is to have a certain percentage of your families that are part of that grant funded tuition. Is that correct?
That would be correct. Yes.
So,
Um, I want to benefit the entire community and not just the ones that can necessarily afford it right now. So we will be accepting that as well for
all right.
the grant program
Is
money.
that part of, is that because that was part of how you got quality care for your kid when you were a teen mom?
I did actually. For the first year, I believe, as I was finishing high school, my oldest was covered under the child care grant program so I could finish high school.
So I figured that might have had something to do with it.
Did. It really did. I don't think I think teen pregnancy right now is pretty low compared to what it was in the 90s at my era. So I think that's good for now for young people.
Unless you live in, well, I'm not going to mention that city. We do have a Texas city that is like number one in the country for that. So
Oh,
we won't go there. Anyway, so, but that's a whole school age care
yes,
soapbox about, what do we think these kids are going to be doing with their time between the ages of 12 and 14?
yes.
So that city's figured it out, kind of, the hard way. So with that, uh, I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna take us back."
It's Kate's
So
turn to take a squirrel break.
I know. So if you were going to talk to a director who is struggling with finding a really good location, that makes sense financially to expand, what might you say to them if they think that maybe they might want to have a conversation with a faith-based organization, even if they know their program isn't a philosophical match, but
Mhm.
maybe they are a match based on schedule as far as the building's empty Monday through Friday?
Right. And I think oftentimes because people are afraid of that conversation, they just don't have those conversations and they go directly to a commercial building. And then, as you have seen in the industry, rent goes up, buildings go up, real estate goes up, and then the cost of childcare goes up. One way to combat that would be to go into a program that has the space and the availability to have you there Monday through Friday. And I really think it begins with like what we're doing now, having a conversation. I mean, I don't think anybody that you approach at any faith-based organization is going to bite your head off because you asked a question. I think it's very easy to just have a conversation like, hey, would you guys be open to that? Could we sit down with maybe your board or your organizational and just talk about what that could look like, not just for me, but also for your end, what financial stability that might give you.
All right, so I'm going to tell a story.
Okay,
Um,
I was going to add a thing, but
I'm going to
okay.
tell a story first. All right. So
Once upon a time,
I'm
that's how it
trying to figure out how old my kids are. All right. The two in the middle, they
29
were
and 27.
okay. Well, maybe I won't say how many years ago this was. However, the reason I'm bringing it up is that a lot of times when I have conversations with folks that are moving into a faith-based partnership, they only think of the Sunday school rooms. And my kids when they were 3 and 4, the preschool that they were in, yes, the infant room and the toddler room. So those two rooms were absolutely also infant and toddler rooms for the church on Sunday or whenever they had other functions. But at the time, and I don't know if every licensing rep will allow this, some will, some won't, or if the church would even be. But one of the things that this preschool did is the way the sanctuary was set up is that the chairs were all moving chairs. They weren't set up
Cute.
in pews that were bolted to the floor. And so in the back of the sanctuary, they had movable walls. And literally every Monday at 5 a.m., the staff would come and build the school. They would build the back 3 classrooms, bring in all their bring all the furniture, all of the walls, bring everything in, and for lack of a better term, set up shop for Monday through Friday. And then every Friday at 5:30, you could not be late on Fridays. They were quite on top of you if you tried to be late on a Friday. But they put it in a way that it was right next to the exterior door. So one of those 3 rooms had a direct outside door. It worked out beautifully in that setting, and as a result, they didn't have to worry about. So at the same time, I served on the board for my local church's preschool, and there was always the Sunday school kids did this to my stuff. And I'm like, the Sunday school kids are in your room for an hour. Like what did you like? How did you have your stuff that the Sunday school kids did that in an hour? Anyway, so so I knew what kind of quandary and emotion that can have on not only the teachers but on the Sunday school volunteers as well. So just something I wanted to plant as a seed that not every arrangement has to look identical. It doesn't have to be, oh, you have an elementary school set of classrooms that you're not using. And yes, we'll use your nursery space, but you've also got these other 10 rooms
Mhm.
that you're not using, and we'd like to rent them. So how did you have, I mean, I know they came to you, but they're still, you said you had conversations with the board. What were some of
Mhm.
the questions, or how did you go there?
Some of it was, what are your expectations for the pre-K program would be something that I asked them. And when they were talking about just being a resource for the community, I'm like, oh, I've got that. We can do that. I love communities. That's my jam all day. But I know some things, like you said, were more, there are other people using this space on the weekends. What are our expectations for like Wednesday nights when they have service or on Sundays? And so we've had a couple of issues here and there with just a water bottle being left out or something like that. But to the most part, I think it's just everybody has to go into it with the understanding that you're having a shared space, and you have to have grace for other people when they have a mistake, when they accidentally don't put the toy where the label says to put the toy. We have to breathe through those processes and really just make sure we all understand we're in this together for a common goal.
Well,
Well,
you
I mean,
brought up a, go ahead, Carrie.
I was going to say, but even if you didn't have a shared space, there are staff sometimes who, they're working in their classroom and they have their kids, and so they're like, "Oh, just go down to your classroom." And so in spaces where there aren't shared spaces, the teacher can come in and the classroom looks like a tornado has come through, and the tornado's name was, Susie. And Susie told her mama, "Yes, I cleaned the room back up." And Susie was telling stories.
Yeah, and that's so true too. Like if you have a teacher who's out and you have another teacher in there for the day, they can come back and that happens. I know sometimes my teachers, if I fill in for them, we definitely have a conversation afterwards, typically. And they're always like, well, I didn't mean to leave a mess there. I was like, I'm not saying you left a mess. I'm just saying, let's do a little better sweeping in the afternoons, try to guide everybody where they're going. But I think depending on which person goes into the room, everybody's going to find a fault in somewhere. So
You
as
mean we
long as,
may not all have the same definition of clean?
Yes, yes, yes. Everybody's level is
or where
different.
it goes.
Yes, even if the label's there, well, I thought it was over there.
And there's that whole, yes, it is a pain in the neck to have to lock some stuff up so that the Wednesday night or the weekend or whatever other shared use people don't mess with your stuff.
Mhm.
But if it means you get paid 50 cents more an hour because the rent is $3,000 less a year, or sorry, less a month, I mean, I think that's part of the framing that the owners and the directors need to do. Yeah, I get that this is annoying, but because we're in shared space instead of at the strip center down the road, I'm able to pay you what I pay you and give you the benefits that I give you.
Absolutely. I think that's definitely, again, another conversation because people only know what they know. And
Yeah.
if you don't inform them of what's going on and how this is actually unfolding, they may not know. So when we bring it to their attention, that's another way to point out, how it's benefiting both programs.
Absolutely. So, as an owner, do you find yourself realizing that it is beneficial for you to have that financial, I don't want to say transparency, because sometimes I say that and owners get a little like, they don't need to know all my numbers. But when we don't share those numbers, we get staff that do well, you're making $6,000 in this room because I can do the math. And because they only know the addition part, they don't know the subtraction part. And so they're not really counting an apple to an apple, they're counting an apple to a hot dog, because it may both be food, but they definitely are nowhere close, right? So, how, as an owner, do you decide what you're going to share? Or have you? Has this been something that you've had to, because people are like, I want a raise, or I want this, or I want that?
Well, typically, whenever I have a conversation or someone is asking me for something, one, I want to schedule an appointment because we are so busy and you're wearing so many hats. You might be thinking about that email that you're responding to somebody and you're inadvertently saying no, and you haven't even had the opportunity to look and see, is this something we could actually do for this teacher? Is this something that this is coming up on their annual meeting? And I do want to do something nice for her. What could I do that would be not just for now, but a longevity of my appreciation to her, and I think you have to make time for that. And when you do it on a whim, you haven't taken the time to actually sit down and talk to them and find out their why. And so I do think it's an opportunity again for another conversation, because without the conversations and keeping those going, your relationships are going to, fizzle out. You have to keep those conversations going with people in the industry, with your parents, with your employees. You have to keep those relationships. They have to be one of the most important things to you. As an owner, they are for me. Because I want to know, did they have a birthday party for so and so's child this weekend? And how did it go? And is she going to be exhausted on Monday? Of course she is, but knowing that just goes back to, why is this teacher here? And if you know their why and why they're getting into it and what their goals are, you can help meet them where they are.
I
You know
really
what? I
like,
feel like that could have been a monkey episode, and we didn't even. I'm like going, I have one of those. I feel like that was like episode, that was like monkey 3, 5, and 2.
All wrapped up.
It was. I was like, look at you, face to face. I'm gonna schedule it for later. Anyway, go ahead, Carrie. I'm sorry.
I
I'm
was just
monkey.
I was just going to say, I love the fact that for you, a lot of this comes back to real, honest conversation and the respect for the other person in the relationship. That it is disrespectful to just give a knee jerk yes or no answer, as opposed to saying, let's sit down and talk about that. And you talked about that when looking at for space, when communicating with a shared use partner. You talked about it with parents, and now you've talked about it with staff. So I'm going to guess you're what my ENT doctor called a heavy vocal user.
I would agree with that. Yes.
I don't know why, Carrie, but I just feel like that's a whole episode in itself, being a heavy vocal user. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I really just value the conversation with just everybody, really, honestly, because I love getting to know people. And that doesn't mean that I'm always open to a conversation, which goes back to let's schedule one maybe for later. Because also I think that gives the other person time to understand that you are busy and that you are going to make sure that you get to them and you can give their undivided attention to them. Because I do think oftentimes employees, parents, grandparents, anybody can kind of feel brushed off. And I don't want to leave the impression for anybody that I would brush them off. And because that goes back to being there for the community, being there for my kids, being there for my families.
Well, I think somewhere in here there's a book on communication just oozing to come out of Julie. And
Absolutely. Kate's trying to wrap up, and I want to say one more thing, which is, was it in your plan to have a second center, or was this just something through serendipity? Had you spoken it out into the universe and then it came, or was it just serendipity?
Um, to be honest, originally I just wanted to have one school that I could focus on and just get all my efforts into it. And then a little time went on and a little time went on, and I was like, okay, well, maybe I should look at a second school because we have something so amazing here. I would love to offer this to another community. And then we looked and it just didn't fit. It didn't fall into place. And so my husband and I had discussed that we were going to wait. And when it found us, it would. And it did. I was actually in Oklahoma at a lead for AELL, Association of Early Learning Leaders. And I got a text message, hey, have you ever thought about opening a second? And I was like, why, yes, I have. And it was that parent that her mom works for the church.
well, I just love that story. Everything part about all the parts, especially that grandma part. So with that, Carrie, what would you like to say to everybody?
Okay, so if you got something from this show, definitely share it with someone else who needs to know. If you'd like to hear more of these, make sure you are subscribed or following, whatever it's called on your podcast player of choice. And please go in and write a review and tell Julie how she did, because she would like to know. At the top of the notes of this episode, there's a thing that says text the show. So text us. We'll pass it on to Julie so that she knows. And we will talk to you in a few days.
Oh, wait. Don't forget, if you don't already know, we do have 2 episodes a week. We've been doing that since July. So if you're only catching us on Thursdays, don't forget we also come out on Tuesdays. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. We love bringing you real talk and fresh insight from the world of early childhood education. Be sure to follow us on social media to stay connected and catch all of the latest episodes. And if you're planning a conference, training, or special event, Kate and Carrie would love to speak to your audience. You can learn more about their keynote sessions and workshops at kateandcarrie.com. If you learned something today, share the show and leave us a review below. We'll see you next time on Childcare Conversations.